In the previous episode, we understood what a process is, what a business process is, and where Quote-to-Cash fits into that world. Today, let's open that box and understand what actually happens inside a Quote-to-Cash business process. There are 5 steps that turn a quote into cash. A deep understanding of these 5 steps is what takes you from someone who just configures a system, be it Salesforce, HubSpot, or any other system, to someone who understands the business behind it. Welcome back to the Quote-to-Cash and ARM Playbook with Anand Ramakrishna, a go-to-mentor series. If you're new to this, you will walk away understanding the full journey a B2B deal takes. If you already work in the space, watch for how a decision at any one stage quietly shapes everything downstream. That is the part even experienced consultants sometimes miss. So, whatever is your starting point, let's continue with the example from our previous episode. Imagine a startup has just hired 20 new employees and approach a technology supplier. But they're not simply buying 20 laptops. They need 20 laptops, 20 docking stations, an antivirus subscription for every laptop, a 3-year extended warranty, and premium IT support, which might be charged as a recurring service. Now we have a much more interesting transaction. We have physical products, subscription products, warranties, and recurring services, all potentially sold together as part of the same deal. So let's follow this transaction through quote to cash. The first major part of our journey is configuration, pricing, and quotation, or CPQ. First, we need to determine what exactly is the customer buying. Which laptop, how much storage, how much RAM, which docking station is compatible with those laptops, which antivirus package do they need, what warranty options are available, which support plans should they purchase. And perhaps there are rules. If you select this laptop, only certain docking stations may be compatible. Maybe a premium support plan requires an extended warranty. Maybe certain antivirus packages are only available with particular products. That is the configuration part, or the C in CPQ. Once we know how much they are buying, we need to determine how much should they pay. Maybe each laptop has a list price of $1,500, but given that they are buying 20 laptops, perhaps they qualify for a volume discount. Maybe the antivirus subscription is priced per user per year. The extended warranty may be a one-time charge, and premium support may cost $50 per employee per month. Perhaps this particular customer also has negotiated pricing. And if sales wants to give them an additional 25% discount, maybe that requires approval from a sales manager or a deal desk. Now we are dealing with pricing. Finally, all of this needs to come together into a commercial offer. What are they buying? How much? At what price? What discounts have been applied? What are the commercial terms and conditions? That becomes our quote. So configure, price, quote, or CPQ. That's step one. The next step is contract lifecycle management. Now, suppose the customer likes the quote. Are we done? Not necessarily. In many B2B transactions, accepting the commercial offer is only one part of the agreement. We may also need a contract. What are the payment terms? Is it net 30, net 60, or a different payment term? What are our warranty obligations? What service levels are we promising for premium support? What happens if the customer terminates the 3-year agreement early? Can they add or remove employees during the contract? And how does that impact the pricing? How will renewals work? What happens if there's a dispute? Maybe the seller starts with its standard contract. The customer's legal teams review it and they propose changes. The seller's legal team might respond back. Certain clauses might get negotiated. Maybe finance needs to approve the non standard payment terms. Eventually, Both these parties agree and sign. Managing that contract from creation and negotiation through approval, execution, amendments, renewals, and eventually termination or expiration is broadly what we mean by Contract Lifecycle Management or CLM. That's step 2. Next, we have order management. We have agreed on what they are buying, what they are paying, and the contractual terms. But there is one small catch. The customer still doesn't have anything. We now need to turn that commercial commitment into something the business can actually execute. That's where order management enters the picture. An order represents what we are committed to provide to the customer. But notice how interesting our example has now become. The customer hasn't purchased just one type of thing. They are purchasing several things that need to be fulfilled differently. The 20 laptops and docking stations need to be physically fulfilled. Are they available in inventory? Are all 20 available in the same warehouse? Do they need to come from multiple locations? Do the laptops need to be configured before they are shipped? Where should they be delivered? Are there multiple shipping locations? What about the antivirus subscriptions? We don't put those in a cardboard box. Those may need to be digitally provisioned or activated. What about the extended warranties? Those may need to be registered and associated with the appropriate devices. And finally, what about premium IT support? That service may need to be activated in a completely different downstream system. So, you see, one commercial transaction can result in multiple fulfillment processes. And this is where concepts such as order decomposition and order orchestration starts becoming extremely important. We will dedicate several episodes to those concepts later in the playbook. For now, the important thing to understand is the order tells the business what it has committed to deliver, and order management helps to coordinate how that commitment gets fulfilled. That was step 3. Let's get to the more interesting part here, billing. Now we have sold the products and services and started fulfilling our commitment. The next question is how and when do we bill the customer? This takes us to billing. And again, our example is intentionally interesting because not everything necessarily follows the same billing model. Maybe the laptops and docking stations are billed upfront. The extended warranty may also be charged upfront. The antivirus subscription might be billed annually, and the premium support service might be billed on a monthly basis. If some of the components were usage based, such as, let's say, cloud storage, perhaps the amount couldn't be even determined until actual usage was captured. So, billing needs to understand what should be billed, how much should be billed, when should it be billed, and how frequently should it be billed. And of course, when taxes come into picture, what taxes should apply. Based on those rules and commercial agreements, the business generates an invoice. The invoice essentially tells the customer, here's what we are billing you for. Here's how much you owe us, and here are the applicable taxes, and here is when the payment is due. So that is billing, and that is step 4. The next step is accounts receivable and collections. Generating an invoice doesn't mean we have received the money. If the customer has net 30 terms, we have effectively told them, you have 30 days to pay this invoice. That amount now becomes a receivable, money the customer owes the business. This takes us to an important concept called accounts receivable. Has the customer paid? How much is still outstanding? Which invoices are due? Which ones are overdue? And eventually, did we actually collect the cash? If the customer doesn't pay on time, we may move into dunning and collections. Perhaps an automated reminder goes out. Then another reminder after a few days. Maybe the account gets escalated to a collections team. Depending on the organization's policies, there may eventually be consequences such as credit hold or suspension of certain services. The objective here is ultimately to turn that outstanding receivable into cash collected by the business. That was step 5. And now we have reached the other end of the quote to cash. So let's put this journey together. Think about where we started. A customer came to us because they needed technology for 20 new employees. We determined what they should buy. We configured the solution, we determined the price, we created a quote, we negotiated and executed the contract, and we created the order. We fulfilled the physical products, we provisioned the subscriptions, we activated services and warranties. Finally, we also generated the invoices based on different billing models. We created accounts receivable and ultimately we collected the payment. At a very high level, we traveled through the CPQ, CLM, order management, fulfillment, billing, accounts receivable, collections, and cash. That is the commercial journey we broadly refer to as quote to cash. Now, depending on the organization, how they define their processes and boundaries, you may see quote to cash represented slightly differently. Some organizations may group or name certain stages differently, and some may draw the boundaries around adjacent financial processes differently. So don't get too hung up on the boxes. What's more important for you is to understand this end to end business journey and how information flows from one stage to the another. That is the part that separates people who just know how to configure from people who have actually lived through a quote to cash transformation. Because here is where things become really interesting for us as consultants. A pricing decision made during CPQ can eventually affect the invoice. Payment terms negotiated during contracting can affect when accounts receivable expects payment. What gets fulfilled can affect what becomes billable. And the quality of the data created upstream can have a direct impact on everything that happens downstream. Quote to cash is not a collection of isolated steps. It is a connected business process. And there's one more thing I want you to remember. Don't assume all of this happens inside one technology platform. CRM could be one system, CPQ could be another system, contracts could be managed somewhere else, physical fulfillment could involve an ERP or warehouse management system, billing could happen in yet another platform, payments could involve payment gateways, and financial accounting may ultimately happen inside an ERP. Which raises the perfect question for our next episode. What are the major systems involved in quote to cash and where does each one fit? That's exactly what we will unpack next in the Quote to Cash and ARM Playbook with Anand Ramakrishna. This is going to be a series covering more than 100 concepts, and my goal from this series is to make sure that I share everything that I have learned in my 21 years of global IT consulting in a very easy to understand format so that not only are you technologically sound, you also understand the business process that you're trying to streamline. I'll see you in the next one.